Okay, as you can see, the title is different, and also the content is different from what we promised. But anyway, let me very briefly take a few minutes to introduce what is on our mind, and then Piotr will continue with the analysis. Well, first of all, I would like to make two fundamental claims that, yeah, well, this literature on importance of trust in political institutions for satisfaction with democracy is very rich. We also use Easton's concept of diffuse and particular support to do what we do in this project, and in particular we establish here net satisfaction with democracy, which is a proxy for diffuse satisfaction with democracy. This net satisfaction with democracy is sort of decontaminated from the impact of satisfaction with the state of the economy. This actually, I've been working with this idea for long, and it seems to work. It is a residual measure subtracting the economic fortune from satisfaction with democracy. And of course, there is a lot of research. Pedro Magalhães, together with Klassen, and then separately, try to explain a lot in what kind of factors explain both types of satisfaction with democracy. The gross one, the contaminated satisfaction with democracy, and the net, pure, diffuse, if you will, satisfaction with democracy. Also, with trust, there is a problem. You know, there is this naive, or should I say, infantile type of attitude to trust. We tend to think that trusting all kinds of political institutions is a kind of a positive thing in itself, whereas also back to certain works of recent works of Chris Welzel and others, well, we should distinguish this trust in something that is legitimate, so to say, or rational, from the irrational trust. And equally so, you can distinguish irrational distrust from very rational distrust in political institutions. Now, we limit our interest here to trust in rational and irrational distrust towards the government. But of course, this rational and irrational here is with asterisks, because we are not ultimately sure that rational, irrational are the best notions for that. Anyway, here are the kind of research questions and expectations. I will read out only the research questions. We are interested in the analysis whether the gross and the net satisfaction with democracy are they explained by the same set of factors? And what is the role of the four types of trust? Do the four variants of trust in government, rational trust, rational distrust, irrational distrust, contribute to more in-depth understanding of the relationship between the trust in government and satisfaction, both types of satisfaction with democracy? And finally, the third question is, are the effects of variance of trust on two types of satisfaction with democracy dependent on other factors, particularly political factors like vote, party identification, alignment with government or opposition, cognitive motivation, in particular, the kind of issue of simplicism, or if you will, need for cognition that recently is popular, and finally, whether our PIA, populist, illiberal, and authoritarian attitudes matter in explaining something in this relationship between trust and satisfaction with democracy. Piotr, the floor is yours.
Okay, thanks. So moving on to the research design, we operationalize our dependent variables. We have two ones. We have gross satisfaction with democracy, which is basic question, are you satisfied with the state of democracy in your country? It's 0 to 10. We use it in a standardized version, but here you can see it in just 0-10 scale, and you can see that the satisfaction with democracy across our 7 countries is highest in Austria, in Great Britain, and in Poland. Keep in mind that some of the surveys were done around election time, right? Particularly in Great Britain, and in Poland, elections were held half a year before. So we have to keep it in mind when we're discussing the results. Now, the net satisfaction with democracy is constructed by simply regressing satisfaction with democracy on evaluation of the state of economy, individual one, but about sociotropics, about state of the economy in the country. Well, it is similar, but there are some differences in the distribution. So you can see that in Poland, it seems that gross satisfaction with democracy is higher, while net satisfaction with democracy is not that high. Then, to our independent variables. So 4 types of trust are operationalized in combining the scores levels of satisfaction with government and trust in government, both high. This means rational trust. If satisfaction with the government is high, but trust in government is low, this is irrational distrust. If satisfaction with the government is low and trust is low, rational distrust. While if satisfaction with the government is low and trust in government is high, this is irrational trust. On to our mediation variables or other independent variables. Regarding the political variables, we use party affiliation. So basically it's this vote for radical right versus mainstream parties versus non-voting. And whether the most liked party is in government or in opposition. Regarding cognitive mobilization, we use education, interest in politics, and a measure of simplism. So politicians overcomplicate simple things, and they should just get to work. With PIA attitudes, it was already covered in the morning session, but in this case we use as a measure of populism just single item scales for anti-elitism and majoritarianism. For illiberalism, we use factor scores, which are quite reliable and load onto 3 different factors. One related to parochialism, kind of this international dimensions of we don't want other countries to interfere. The traditionalism, intolerance, so this is related to the cultural, socio-cultural issues, and separately nativism related to attitudes towards migrants. And authoritarianism, we use two different items. So one is kind of this power authoritarianism, whether you are in favor of a strong leader above the law, and this social dimension, which is obedience is the most important value our children should learn. We control for social demographics as age and gender, and generalized trust also. Okay, so how are these 4 types of trust distributed across our 7 countries? We have 44% of citizens in these 7 countries rationally distrusting their government, 33 rationally trusting their government, and then we have 9.4 irrationally distrusting and over 13% irrationally trustful. So there's more than 20% kind of do not fit this straight category of just combining satisfaction with democracy and trust with democracy. Across countries, well, there are significant differences. So Italians and Poles are rationally trustful, more so than other countries. While for rational distrust, Czech Republic and Hungary are the countries that are over the mean, the average. While for irrational trust, Great Britain comes out as the country that is strongest, or nearly 30% of Brits do irrationally trust in their government. Now here is a caveat, because this was election time. So we have to we'll have to work on that better, but some of this effect for sure is driven by just the change in government, right? Between Conservatives and Labour. Okay, so how are our 4 trusts related? What's their impact on satisfaction with democracy, the gross one, the blue in this graph, and net satisfaction with democracy, so the residuals after taking out the evaluation of economy. What we can see is that only rational distrust is related to lower levels of both types of satisfaction with democracy. And generally speaking, the levels of, so the effect is lower for the net satisfaction with democracy. So it is less prone to be influenced by trust, all of them more or less, more so the rational ones, okay? All right, So moving on, how do our three main ideas of intermediating variables? So remember, this was cognitive mobilization, the political ones, and then the PIA, okay? So cognitive mobilization does influence both satisfaction with democracies, and it is positive, but it is their effects are independent of trust, okay? So we don't find any interactive effects there. However, we do find that there is a difference from the political variables. We do find that the most liked party in government has different effects. First, it only affects gross SATDEM, not the net one. And then it seems that it affects those who are rationally distrustful and irrationally trustful. We still have to work on this, okay? This is very, very fresh out of the oven, but still, this is something we put on the table. That it seems that there is a mediating role here of the most liked party in government. Now, going to the PIA. Here, I think, if you want to, please focus on the rational trust, okay? These are, on the left, we have gross SATDEMO. On the right, this is sorry about that. This is net SATDEMO, and this is gross SATDEMO. No, actually, these are both gross SATDEMO, okay? So this is both gross. But on the left, we have anti-elitism, and on the right, we have majoritarianism. So two dimensions or subdimensions of populism, okay? And if you look at the first column, so the rational, trustful citizens, you can see that there is a negative effect on satisfaction with democracy for those who are rationally trustful of anti-elitism, while for majoritarianism, it's the opposite. It has a positive effect. So those who hold more majoritarian views of democracy are more satisfied democracy if they rationally trust their government. Yes, thanks. Regarding illiberalism, traditional intolerance and nativism both have negative effects on both types of satisfaction with democracy, but they're not really related to the four types of trust. What we do see is that parochialism has different effects. So it boosts satisfaction with democracy for those who rationally trust the government, while it decreases the satisfaction with democracy for those who irrationally trust the government, the blue and the red marginal effects here. Okay, so does this add anything, right? These four types of trust. Here, what we did is to repeat the same analysis, but with trust in government and with satisfaction with government performance. So the two variables that we use to construct our 2x2 typology. And what you can see is that trust in government affects in the same way both of our dependent variables, so both gross and net satisfaction with democracy. While satisfaction with government performance has stronger effect on satisfaction with democracy of the gross, not of the net one. So still, this is something, but I think that with our four-type typology, we can say more than just this, okay? All right, so to conclude, what we see is that net satisfaction with democracy is more resistant to external impacts. This is something consistent with existing knowledge. And it is not only about trust. Satisfaction with government performance seems more relevant for explaining both gross and net satisfaction with democracy. And what we also see is that only rational distrust equals low level of both satisfaction with democracy, okay? Another conclusion is that even those distrustful of the government will be likely to be satisfied with democracy if they think that the government is doing their job properly, okay? Cognitive mobilization seems not to be a relevant factor, mediating factor here. However, most liked party in government seems to boost gross satisfaction with democracy, okay? Regarding populism, illiberalism, and authoritarianism, populism, anti-elitism and majoritarianism seem to have distinct effects. Regarding illiberalism, we find that parochialism has heterogeneous effects by trust types. Regarding authoritarianism, the effects are less important. They are slightly negative, okay? And finally, to conclude, well, I think, at least I started this project thinking about these irrational, trustful, satisfied Democrats would be Fidesz supporters, for instance, right? They're satisfied with democracy, even though they, you know. it's not really the case. What we find is that there are rather non-populists, Western Europeans, and supporters of parties in government. Thank you very much for your attention, and we look forward to the discussion.